A car, parked in an empty lot. The driver's seat abandoned. No signs of struggle. No signs of forced entry. Just sitting there, as if its owner had stepped away for only a moment, but never returned. Inside, a cryptic message scrawled in red. A stuffed animal. A single hotel key card. None of it made sense. None of it should have been there. And the young man who owned the car. He was gone. No phone calls. No goodbyes. No trace. And then, another story. Nearly a decade later. Different city, different name. A teenage boy leaves home on what should have been an ordinary morning. His routine, unchanged. His life, uneventful. But something was different. A small, deliberate act, a carefully withdrawn sum of money, a single train ticket purchased in cash. A one-way trip. A destination he had never mentioned before. Security cameras catch his image, a fleeting glimpse as he walks through the crowded station. And then, just like that, he vanishes. Two people. Two separate lives. Two unexplained disappearances. No connection. No logical explanation. Yet, as the years passed, both cases seemed to linger in the minds of those who followed them, unanswered questions twisting into speculation, growing into something more. Something unsettling. Because behind the official reports, behind the witness statements and grainy surveillance footage, there were details, small, strange, seemingly insignificant, details that refused to be ignored. Clues that pointed to something beyond a simple disappearance. Clues that hinted at the possibility that neither of them had planned to leave at all. Some believe these stories are nothing more than tragic accidents, young lives lost to the chaos of an unpredictable world. Others, though, see patterns. Coincidences too strange to ignore. A sequence of events too precise to be written off as mere chance. Were these two young men running towards something? Or were they running from something? And if they were, what had they seen? Tonight, as the rain falls outside and the world grows quiet, we explore two of the strangest vanishings in modern history. Two stories with no conclusions, no easy answers, only questions that deepen with every detail uncovered. Some cases are solved with time. Some, given enough attention, reveal the truth buried beneath years of uncertainty. But some remain open-ended. Hanging in the air like unfinished sentences, like whispers in the dark. These are the disappearances of Zeb Quinn and Andrew Gosden. And their stories have yet to be told in full. Story 1. The night was cold, the air crisp in the way winter nights often are in Asheville, North Carolina. It was January 2nd, 2000, the start of a new year, a time for fresh beginnings. For 19-year-old Zeb Quinn, it should have been an ordinary evening. A routine shift at Walmart, the familiar glow of fluorescent lights, the steady rhythm of scanning items, handling customers. It was a job like any other, not particularly exciting, but steady. Reliable. And Zeb was nothing if not reliable. By all accounts, he wasn't the type to disappear. He lived a quiet life, close to his mother and sister, with no history of trouble. A kind-hearted young man with a shy demeanor, he spent his time working, saving money, and daydreaming about cars. His prized possession was a Mazda Protégé, though he had plans, bigger plans. That night, he was supposed to take a step toward those plans. After clocking out of work, he met up with a coworker, Robert Jason Owens. The two had made arrangements to check out a Mitsubishi Eclipse that Zeb was interested in buying. It wasn't just any car, it was the kind of vehicle that made his eyes light up, sleek, fast, the kind he had talked about for weeks. Jason, an acquaintance rather than a close friend, had offered to help. He knew someone selling one. He knew where to go. At 9 p.m., they met at a gas station, a neutral location before heading out toward their destination. The details of that moment are clear. Surveillance footage confirms it. They were seen together, speaking briefly before getting into separate cars, Zeb in his Mazda, Jason in his truck. They pulled onto the road, one following the other, just two young men driving toward what should have been a simple transaction. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Only 15 minutes into the drive, Zeb signaled for Jason to pull over. It was abrupt, unexpected. Jason would later say that Zeb seemed agitated, flustered. That he was in a hurry, speaking quickly. Something was wrong. There was no warning, no explanation, only urgency. Zeb told Jason he had to leave, that something had come up. He asked him to take his car back into town, said he would find another way home. It didn't make sense, but Jason agreed. And just like that, Zeb Quinn vanished. He was never seen again. What happened in those moments after he left Jason behind? Where did he go? And more importantly, why? At first, his disappearance didn't raise immediate alarm. People miss plans. They forget. They change their minds. But Zeb wasn't the type to simply walk away. His mother knew this. His sister knew this. And when he failed to return home, when he didn't show up for work the next day, concern turned to fear. Then, 2 days later, something strange happened. A call came into Walmart. A voice on the other end of the line claimed to be Zeb. He was calling in sick. It was short, rushed, unnatural. And the moment the call ended, the unease that had been growing among his family and friends deepened. Because they knew it wasn't him. The voice was similar, but something was off. The phrasing. The tone. The hesitation. It wasn't Zeb at all. Detectives traced the call back to a local Volvo plant. And that's where they found Robert Jason Owens. He admitted to making the call. Said he had done it as a favor. That Zeb had asked him to. But when pressed for details, his answers were vague, shifting. He didn't know where Zeb was. He had no idea what had happened. His story looped in circles, never quite adding up. And then, the car appeared. On January 6th, for days after Zeb had gone missing, his Mazda protege was found parked outside of the Little Pig's barbecue restaurant. It wasn't just left there, it looked as though it had been placed there intentionally, almost like a message. The car itself was undamaged, yet inside, nothing made sense. The car appeared without warning. For days after Zeb Quinn vanished, his Mazda protege was found sitting in a parking lot outside a small barbecue restaurant in Asheville. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't abandoned on some back road or left in a place where no one would think to look. It was parked neatly, carefully, as if someone had placed it there for a reason. And yet, nothing about it made sense. The doors were locked. The exterior showed no signs of damage. At first glance, there was nothing overtly alarming about it, no shattered glass, no blood, no immediate evidence of foul play. But as investigators peered through the windows, what they saw inside only deepened the mystery. On the back windshield, drawn in a smear of red, was the outline of a pair of lips. The color stark against the glass, carefully traced, deliberate. A message? A taunt? Or something else entirely? Inside, in the driver's seat, was something even stranger. A stuffed puppy, small and unassuming, sat motionless. Plush fabric, round button eyes staring into the empty lot. It was unsettling, out of place, like a misplaced belonging left behind in the rush of an unexplained exit. And then there were the items, things that shouldn't have been there, things that only raised more questions. His Walmart work uniform, folded neatly. A hotel key card, belonging to no known reservation, leading to nowhere. And a single bottle of hairspray, something Zeb had never been known to use. Each object felt intentional, yet none of them provided answers. If Zeb had abandoned his car here, why would he leave his uniform inside, something he would need for work? If he had checked into a hotel, why was there no record of his stay? And the lipstick, who had drawn it? What did it mean? For those who knew him, these details only solidified one chilling truth: this wasn't a case of someone simply walking away. Someone else had been inside that car. Someone had placed those items there. And whoever they were, they had taken the time to leave behind a scene that felt more like a riddle than a clue. The location itself felt wrong. Little Pig's Barbecue wasn't far from where Zeb worked, but it wasn't a place he was known to visit. It wasn't along the route he should have taken home. It wasn't near the spot where he was last seen with Jason Owens. It was just there. As if someone wanted it to be found, but not too soon. As if it had been parked there long enough to be noticed, but not so long that it raised immediate suspicion. Who had driven it there? If it wasn't Zeb, then someone else had been behind the wheel. Someone who had the keys. Someone who knew exactly where to leave it. And then came another disturbing realization. The car had been found 4 days after his disappearance, but neighbors had reported seeing it there only a day or two after he vanished. That meant, for at least 24 to 48 hours, it had gone unnoticed. Or maybe, it had been moved. The timeline was slipping, shifting, becoming harder to piece together. Investigators combed through the car, searching for anything that might provide a lead, but there were no clear fingerprints. No receipts, no maps, nothing that pointed to where Zeb had gone, or who might have been with him. And then there was the most unsettling fact of all, the car's headlights had been tampered with. Whoever had driven the Mazda after Zeb's disappearance had taken the time to disable them. A calculated move. A way to travel unnoticed under the cover of darkness. But why? There were no answers. Only the feeling that this car, this small, everyday vehicle, had been used for something more. Something no one could explain. And as investigators stood in that parking lot, staring at the lipstick on the window, the stuffed puppy in the seat, the uniform that would never be worn again, one thing was clear. Zeb Quinn hadn't just disappeared. Someone had made sure of that. The last person to see Zeb Quinn alive was Robert Jason Owens. It was a simple fact, one that couldn't be ignored. He had been with Zeb that night. He had planned to help him buy a car. He had driven with him out of town. And he had been the last known person to speak with him before he disappeared. That alone made him important to the investigation. But it wasn't just that. It was the details, the inconsistencies in his story, the unexplained injuries, the way his version of events never quite aligned with the evidence. From the beginning, something felt wrong. Jason claimed that after Zeb suddenly turned around that night, after he waved him off and drove away, he hadn't seen or heard from him again. But then, the phone call. A call had been made from Zeb's phone later that evening. Not to his mother. Not to his sister. Not to anyone he would normally contact. It was made to Jason's home. A single call, brief, unexplained. When asked about it, Jason had an answer. Zeb had called him, he said. A simple call, nothing unusual. But there was a problem. The records didn't match his story. Zeb's phone hadn't been used by him at all that night. So who made the call? And then, there were the scratches. The morning after Zeb vanished, Jason Owens showed up to work with fresh injuries on his face. His lip was swollen. His forehead marked with scratches, thin red lines raking across his skin. When asked what had happened, he had an explanation. A car accident, he said. A minor one, nothing serious. But no accident report existed. No insurance claim. No police record of any kind. And when officers examined his truck, they found no damage to match his story. So what had really happened? There was another detail, one that seemed small at first but became harder to ignore the deeper investigators looked. Jason had been the one to call Zeb's job and report him sick. He admitted it freely, said he was doing a favor for his friend. But Zeb's family knew better. He would never have asked someone else to do that. He would never have risked losing his job over something so careless. The more investigators questioned Jason, the more tangled his story became. The small inconsistencies piled up, details shifted, explanations changed. But without hard evidence, there was no way to connect him directly to Zeb's disappearance. And so, investigators looked elsewhere. There was another thread. Another name. Misty Taylor. Zeb had spoken about her often. A girl he had been interested in for months. Sweet, soft-spoken, someone he had hoped to get closer to. But Misty wasn't single. Her boyfriend, Wesley Smith, was possessive. Angry. The kind of man who didn't take kindly to competition. Rumors swirled. That Zeb and Misty had been growing closer. That Wesley had found out. That there had been warnings, quiet, unspoken threats that Zeb should back off. And then there was a message. The night he vanished, before he left work, Zeb had received a page. A number flashed across the screen. The message urgent. Enough to make him stop, make him worried. Enough to make him turn his car around just minutes into his trip with Jason. Who had sent it? It was Misty's home number. But Misty later swore she had never paged him. The timing was impossible to ignore. The moment he saw that message, everything changed. He pulled over. He told Jason he had to go. He left in a hurry, looking shaken, as if something was wrong. Has it been a setup? Had someone lured him away that night, knowing exactly what they were doing? For a moment, it seemed like the pieces were falling into place. A jealous boyfriend. A cryptic message. A meeting that never should have happened. But just when police thought they had an answer, something even darker emerged. Years passed. Time moves forward, as it always does. New cases emerged. New headlines took the place of old ones. But Zeb Quinn's name never faded completely. He remained a question mark, a mystery frozen in time. His family still searched. Investigators still wondered. His car had been found, but he hadn't. His belongings had surfaced, but he was nowhere to be seen. And though the trail had gone cold, there were still whispers, suspicions that refused to be silenced. And then, more than 15 years after Zeb vanished, Jason Owens resurfaced. Not as a witness. Not as a suspect in Zeb's case. But as a killer. March 2015. A horrifying crime came to light in the quiet town of Lester, North Carolina. A couple, Christy Shone Codd and her husband, J.T. Codd, had vanished. Christy, a rising chef known for her work on television, was 5 months pregnant. Their disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. But this time, there was no long, winding mystery. No lingering uncertainty. Because investigators didn't have to search far. Their killer was already known. Jason Owens was arrested, and what authorities found on his property was something out of a nightmare. Burned remains. Evidence of destruction. A crime so methodical, so deliberate, it left little room for doubt. He had killed them. He had tried to erase them. He had almost succeeded. And suddenly, the old questions returned. If Jason was capable of this, what had he done in 2000? Had he done the same thing to Zeb? For years, there had been speculation. That Jason knew more than he ever admitted. That his story about that night had been carefully crafted, designed to mislead. That his injuries the next day weren't from an accident at all, but from something far worse. And now, standing on his property, staring at the undeniable proof of what he had done, investigators couldn't shake the thought, was Zeb here once, too? Had his fate been the same? Authorities searched. They combed through the land, the ashes, the evidence left behind. They hoped, dreaded, that Zeb's remains might finally be found. But they weren't. Nothing. No sign of him. No final answer. No confirmation of what so many already feared. Jason never spoke about Zeb. He admitted to the Codd's murder. He confessed to destroying their bodies. But when it came to the 19-year-old who had vanished all those years ago, he remained silent. If he knew something, he took it with him. And so, the mystery remained. Zeb Quinn is still missing to this day. His mother still waits. His case remains open. And the truth, whatever it may be, is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Story 2. Andrew Gosden was not the kind of boy who vanished. 14 years old, quiet, thoughtful. A mind sharper than most his age. He wasn't just smart, he was exceptional. A gifted student with an almost photographic memory. He excelled in mathematics, devoured books, and had a deep fascination with the world around him. But he wasn't the kind to seek attention. He was reserved, an introvert by nature, more comfortable in his own space than in the chaos of crowds. He followed a routine. Strict. Unwavering. The kind of schedule that left no room for uncertainty. Every morning, he woke at the same time. Left for school at the same time. Walked the same path, sat in the same seat, came home at the same hour. Predictable. Reliable. Until the morning of September 14, 2007. Something was different. It began like any other day. Or at least, that's how it seemed. Andrew woke up in his home in Doncaster, England. His parents assumed he was getting ready for school, just as he always did. He put on his uniform, black trousers, white shirt, striped tie. His backpack was slung over his shoulder as he walked out the door. But Andrew never went to school that morning. Somewhere between his home and the school gates, something changed. No one saw him hesitate. No one saw him turn back. There was no sign of distress, no indication that he was about to do something completely out of character. But by the time the first lesson of the day began, Andrew was nowhere to be found. What happened next was not the behavior of a boy who had simply run away. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't reckless. It was calculated. Deliberate. And, in the days that followed, the people who knew him best would be left with one agonizing question. Why? Andrew Gosden stepped out of his house that morning like it was any other day. His uniform was neatly pressed. His bag was over his shoulder. To anyone watching, he was just another student heading off to school. No rush, no hesitation, no sign that anything was different. But something was. Because Andrew never arrived at school that day. Instead, he did something no one expected. Something no one could explain. He walked to a nearby cash machine and withdrew £200, every single pound in his bank account. He wasn't careless with money. He wasn't impulsive. He rarely even spent what he had. But that morning, he emptied his account without a second thought. Then, he didn't head to school. He didn't go home. He made his way to Doncaster station. And when he got there, he did something even more unusual. He bought a train ticket. Not just any ticket. A one-way ticket. To London. It wasn't a place he visited often. It wasn't a city he knew well. There had been no mention of a trip, no plans made with friends, no reason he would need to be there. But at 9:35 a.m., Andrew Gosden boarded the train. Alone. The journey to London took about 2 hours. 2 hours in which Andrew sat quietly among strangers, staring out the window as the countryside blurred past. No one remembers speaking to him. No one recalls anything unusual. He simply sat, waited, and when the train pulled into King's Cross station, he stepped onto the platform and walked away. CCTV cameras captured him at 11:25 a.m. A still image, frozen in time. Andrew, in his school uniform. His bag over his shoulder. Walking through the station with quiet determination, disappearing into the sea of commuters. And then. Nothing. No calls. No texts. No messages to his family. No confirmed sightings. No further security footage. Andrew Gosden walked out of King's Cross Station that morning and was never seen again. Why London? It was a question that haunted everyone who knew Andrew. He had never expressed an interest in the city. He had no friends there, no family waiting for him, no reason, at least, none that anyone could understand, to make that journey. Yet he had walked into Doncaster Station that morning with quiet confidence, bought a one-way ticket, and disappeared into the crowds of King's Cross. A 14-year-old boy, alone, with nowhere to go. Or so it seemed. Was it really impulsive? A sudden decision made in the moment? Or had it been planned? There was nothing in his bedroom to suggest he had been preparing for something. No packed bags. No hidden notes. His computer held no clues, no messages, no search history that hinted at an escape. But then again, Andrew was brilliant. If he had wanted to hide something, he would have known exactly how to do it. Had he been speaking to someone? A stranger online? A secret friend his family never knew about? His parents had always trusted him. He wasn't the kind of teenager who got into trouble. He didn't rebel, didn't stay out late, didn't take risks. But the internet could be a hidden world, a place where even the most cautious minds could be drawn into something they didn't fully understand. Could he have been lured there? Told to come alone? Promised something? Or was he running from something? That was the part that didn't fit. Andrew wasn't unhappy. He wasn't struggling in school. He had no fights with his parents, no history of depression or distress. There was no warning sign, nothing, at least, that anyone recognized at the time. But people can hide things. Even from those closest to them. Was there something he had never spoken about? A fear he had kept to himself? And then, there was the question no one wanted to ask. Was someone waiting for him? Had this been his choice? Or had he stepped off that train and into the hands of someone who had been expecting him? A 14-year-old boy in a school uniform. Alone in one of the busiest cities in the world. No phone. No clear destination. And then, gone. No confirmed sightings. No CCTV footage after King's Cross. No trace of him was ever found. Just questions. Endless, aching questions. Years passed. And with them, the trail of Andrew Gosden grew colder. For a long time, there was nothing. No clues. No new leads. Just an empty space where answers should have been. His family searched tirelessly, chasing whispers, following every possible lead, only to find themselves staring into the same abyss. The unknown. But then, in 2018, something happened. A message appeared on an online forum. It was brief. Mysterious. From an anonymous user claiming to know exactly what had happened to Andrew. No details. No explanations. Just a single, haunting statement. Authorities traced the message, hoping it would lead them somewhere, anywhere. But before they could make progress, the user vanished. The account was deleted. The lead, like so many before it, slipped through their fingers, leaving behind only more questions. A year later, in 2019, another chilling possibility emerged. A tip came in. Someone claimed Andrew was alive. Living under a different name. A new identity. The authorities took it seriously. Investigators followed the lead, searching records, scanning databases, reaching out to anyone who might have seen him. But there was nothing solid. No proof. Just a whisper on the wind, impossible to grasp. Then came 2021. Another potential sighting. This time, in London. Someone had seen a man, one who bore an uncanny resemblance to what Andrew might look like now, years older, changed by time. The details were scarce, the sighting unconfirmed, but the possibility lingered. Could he really be out there? Alive? Living a life no one knew about? Or was it just another false lead, another cruel trick played by hope? There was no way to know. Because Andrew Gosden never came home. No phone calls. No letters. No explanations. Just the same unanswered mystery that had haunted his family for years. A boy who vanished into thin air. A case that refuses to be solved. And to this day, Andrew Gosden's fate remains one of Britain's most haunting mysteries. 2 names. 2 young men. 2 disappearances that remain unexplained. Zeb Quinn left work that night, planning nothing more than a car purchase. A simple meeting between friends. But within hours, something went wrong. Something no one could predict. His car was found abandoned days later, holding objects that made no sense. A bottle of hairspray. A hotel key card. A live puppy. And a cryptic message, traced in lipstick. His friend, the last person to see him, came forward with a story. But the pieces never fit. Scratches on his face. A phone call that never happened. And years later, when that same man was arrested in an unrelated case, police searched for answers they had long suspected. Yet still, Zeb Quinn remains missing. Andrew Gosden woke up one morning and walked out of his home as if it were any other day. But it wasn't. He never went to school. He never looked back. Instead, he took every last bit of money from his account, bought a one-way ticket to London, and disappeared into the crowds of King's Cross Station. He never told a soul why. His family never saw it coming. And in the years that followed, theories swirled. Did he plan to vanish? Was he meeting someone? Had someone been waiting for him? Rumors surfaced, messages from unknown sources, whispers of a new identity, glimpses of a face in a city where no one knew his name. But none of it brought answers. None of it told the truth. Both cases remain open. Both families still search. And the questions they leave behind are endless. Because disappearances like these don't just take people. They take certainty. They take peace. They take the ability to close the door on a tragedy and say, this is what happened. Instead, all that remains is the quiet, unsettling realization that some mysteries may never be solved. But what happened to Zeb Quinn and Andrew Gosden? Were these disappearances the result of careful planning, or something far more unexpected? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you never want to miss a case like this, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes, the only thing more haunting than the questions, is knowing that somewhere out there, the answers still exist.